New poll, New York Times, lefties' heads exploding everywhere because Trump winning 5 of the 6 battleground states. If that's the case, he wipes Biden off the map.
If that's the case, he would have a 300 electoral vote win. You only need 270 to win. It would be an absolute landslide. And all those states, the 5 of the 6 critical swing states, Joe Biden won in 2020. So this is a complete swing the other way towards Trump, where now he's beating Biden by up to 10 points, 6 points, 5 points, 4 points in these states that Biden won just a few years ago. The enormous swing in Trump's favor is undeniable, and Democrats should be deeply concerned. This is as close to a 5-alarm fire as you can get in electoral politics. Their only comfort right now is, well, those same voters said that if Trump actually gets convicted of a crime before Election Day, that might change their vote. Okay, first of all, we'll see. We don't know whether that's true at all, because for 8 years now, we've had if it could just, then Trump would, if he would just, then Trump would definitely, and he never does go away, right? So don't put a lot of stock in that. And secondly, what we're seeing in these polls is the more they throw at him, the stronger he gets. So I'm actually not even sure that, whereas normally they wouldn't vote against a convicted felon, that rule is going to apply necessarily if it actually happens to Trump. Anyway, the numbers are absolutely devastating, to the point where David Axelrod, the guy who got Barack Obama elected twice, came out explicitly in writing on X talking about how it is time for Joe Biden to step aside. He's got to do the soul searching. He has to have private conversations in the residence of the White House with Jill Biden and talk about whether he is doing this for his ego or for the country, because he doesn't want his legacy to be handing the White House back to Donald Trump.
What is extraordinary, again, inside the polls, and there's polls within the polls and data within the polls, and it's been fascinating to watch Democrats try to find the way to say, oh, all of this doesn't really count. And particularly on MSNBC, they have gone nuts about this, the result when it comes to the economy. That, well, the economy's doing okay, and President Biden's doing great, and Bidenomics works. The reality is that, as you know, this poll says that a huge number of Americans say that Biden's policies have directly hurt them. So you've got this idea of sort of the people who've got a shed load of money talking on television, who sit back and talk about everything at the macro level, but the micro level where normal people live, they say, you know what, I hated the tweets, I couldn't stand a lot of the crazy, but I had a better life under the orange man.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Biden is out there calling it Bidenomics. It's just like the American dream. And everyone is sitting at home not being able to afford a gallon of milk saying, it doesn't feel like the American dream. Why do I feel so bad if things are going so well? The inflation that we've been suffering over here since he took office and spent trillions recklessly, despite the warnings that doing so at a time when he just took office, when we didn't need that for COVID relief, and we're already some $6 trillion into the hole on all the spending, made no sense whatsoever. He did it, and the effects of it were felt almost immediately. At the same time, he was rolling back all of our independence when it came to energy, making us more reliable on foreign government sources, putting us in the Chinese hands when it comes to wind, when it comes to solar, not allowing us to drill to take care of ourselves. Gas prices went through the roof. People are still reeling from that. You make $50,000 a year or $65,000 a year, you count every penny. It doesn't, just because gas prices have gone down since a year and a half ago, doesn't mean you've instantly recovered, especially with this inflation that's been baked in for so many years. Yes, it's come down, but it's still much higher than it was when Trump was president, and people feel it. So it's some 17% of the electorate says they feel the change negatively under Joe Biden economically, and some 18% said they felt it positively under President Trump. So it's an exact, opposite swing of voters who say, this guy stinks, this guy made my life better. And that's why Trump is beating Biden when it comes to the economy by a margin of 59 to 37. Voters trust Trump over Biden on the economy, and it's not going to change. By the way, the epilogue to that is nearly 2 times as many voters say that economic issues will determine their vote versus social issues. So it's the number one issue for voters, and Trump is winning by a 20-point margin.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to watch as the media will try to shift the conversation back to democracy and abortion, democracy and abortion, democracy and abortion, because they're the only two issues that the Democrats currently lead on. What about the protests out the front of the White House, where I cannot believe it, but Muslim Americans are yelling God is great in a fashion that they would in the worst parts of the most terror-riddled parts of the Middle East? They were doing it out the front of the White House.
They just did it to the Statue of Liberty.
Wow.
I'm sorry, but you don't touch the Statue of Liberty in the United States. You don't touch it. Everybody understands that. These people are derelicts. They're misinformed. They are obviously anti-Semites. I mean, they truly are. They're out there screaming for the Intifada, screaming from the river to the sea, the wiping out of Israel. Some are chanting one state solution, meaning Israel goes away, just to Palestine. Wow. I mean, it's right on the nose. They hate Jews, and they're displaying their Jew hatred openly and without embarrassment. To see them put their fake blood all over the gates to the White House is absolutely disgusting. To see them get anywhere near Lady Liberty. You know who shares the values that Lady Liberty stands for? Israel. Israel stands with us when it comes to those issues, not Hamas, not the Palestinians. They have no idea what these people even stand for. Do they know? Take a look at a Palestinian woman. Honestly, go over there and take a look at your average Palestinian woman. You think you're ever going to see her in a bikini? Okay, I'll wait. How about the women who are being controlled by Hamas? How do you think their reproductive freedom is? Got any thoughts on that? Never mind the LGBTQ crowd, all of whom would be thrown off a building by any Hamas member. But they're going to go out into the streets and march for them? Oh, they say it's just the civilians. It's just the civilians. Really? Then you should be marching against Hamas, because they're the ones committing war crimes. That's the left's favorite term these days. They're committing war crimes by hiding themselves behind civilians. Why don't you hear these crowds chanting about those war crimes? It's only the alleged harm to civilians by Israel, which does everything within its power to stop from hitting civilians. Then they jump up and down. They're not allowing humanitarian passage out of Gaza. The United States and Israel have done everything within their power to try to get actual civilians out of Gaza safely. For the longest time, Egypt wouldn't take them. Well, Israel's not going to take them. Why should Israel take them? So Egypt wouldn't take them. We put pressure on. Now Egypt says it's going to take some. Guess what Hamas did? It started putting its wounded terrorists on the needs to exit list. So now it's slowing everything down. Hamas is trying to game the system, and these international authorities have got to look over the list saying, oh, sorry, that's a terrorist who cut people's heads off. Egypt doesn't want him, and he's not going to qualify for humanitarian aid. Yet the protesters smear their blood, saying they're killing civilians. They won't let them pass. The oppression, intifada. They don't know what they're talking about.
If they changed the word about Jews to African Americans, and they said the same things they're saying on college campuses, the students would be booted if they were caught carrying tiki torches as opposed to, as you say, fake blood and all the rest of it. They'd be booted off campus. Why is the institutional response of America not to come down on those that are calling for the death of others because of their race?
Well, I can defend that. That piece of it I can defend. You know, we've got this lovely thing called the First Amendment that doesn't allow the government to crack down on free speech that, you know, with only a sliver for an exception, may even be controversial. The First Amendment is there to prevent speech you do not like, including hate speech. Many people think that's unconstitutional. It's not. Hate speech is perfectly constitutional. Actual threats are not constitutional. Actual incitement to violence, and that's a very high bar, has to be incitement in the moment to go do it right now, and then the person likely does it. Then you're probably there. But just like, we want to kill the Jews, that actually doesn't rise to the level. I mean, it doesn't. So you're allowed to say hateful things. However, that does not require any employer to hire you. It doesn't require a law firm to keep your job offer extended to you. It would be like saying, well, I saw you out there with your KKK hat on saying, well, the blacks deserved it. You know, I did it, but the blacks deserved it. You know, I have to contextualize my lynchings. I don't have to hire you, okay? And we don't have to hire the people out there saying, you've got to contextualize the Palestinians cutting heads off and burning children. You know, it's like, they kind of were asking for it. They're asking for it's a hard no. And those of us who have that moral clarity can see it very, very clearly and are unabashed about saying it. And the others, I really genuinely believe, in most cases, it boils down to anti-Semitism, corruption by the woke mind virus into building this all into a racial oppressive narrative, or just general mob mentality. Like, you want to go along to get along. This is the cool new thing. You kind of feel cool, it feels subversive, and you want to be part of the in crowd by pulling down hostage posters of children.
Tell us about a horrible injury that a female hockey player has received while her team was playing a game, and why biological men are playing such a violent sport against women.
So this happened in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which is one of the most liberal states in the union. And it was on a field hockey team at the high school level in which a boy was playing on the girls' team. Now, they say, not sure he's trans. He might actually be an actual boy. He looks very effeminate. If you look at his pictures, I would submit there's some confusion there. Also, there is no regular biological boy I've ever met who wants to play field hockey on the girls' team. I mean, truly, I've never seen that. That's not a thing. But this boy, for some reason, wanted to do it. And because Massachusetts has its own equal rights amendment statewide, it requires that any child of one gender can play on the opposite gender's sports team if there's not a separate sports team for that person. This was created for girls. It was created for girls like me, who grew up in the 1970s, when there wasn't a boys' baseball team, or there wasn't a girls' baseball team. And so my mom had me play with the boys. And I was the only girl on the team, and it was fine. I got to play. I had some ridiculous moments, I'm not going to lie. But in any event, I got through it. And I hit a home run and I cried. It was not
fantastic.
The right thing.
Why did you cry? Because you thought you hurt the ball?
No, I was so overwhelmed with emotion that I had hit a home run because I was not a very sporty person. I wasn't sporty. Anyway, it's one of those things that haunts me, but I did it. The point is, that's why this statewide equal rights amendment is in place. Not so boys who have 50 pounds and 6 inches on their female competitors can join the field hockey team. So they, notwithstanding that, they let him play, and they endangered every girl on that team and every girl on the opposite teams. And that's what happened. He whipped that ball so hard with his field hockey stick that it completely took out this girl's face. She had to be hospitalized with serious injuries. It wasn't like she lost a tooth or two, though she did. She had serious facial injuries that landed her in the hospital. They said the looks on the girls' faces were absolutely blood curdling. And now these parents are looking around saying, how did you allow this to happen? This is the reason why in most sane states, they won't allow boys this position. In volleyball, they're already cracking down because boys are taller and they're stronger. And when they spike that ball across that net, it can seriously injure a girl playing on the other side. And guess what? That's exactly what happened in North Carolina, where a girl suffered permanent damage, nerve damage, after she was hit in the face by a spike from a male player who said he was trans. Now we see it on the field hockey team. How many more girls are going to have to be permanently injured before the woke crowd decides to remember there's such a thing as girls and women's rights? And I don't understand the parents who won't fight against this. There was a situation up in Canada, Paul, where they let a 50-year-old man swim with 13-year-old girls. A 50-year-old man swim. If you are not going to stand up to this as a parent, you are part of the problem. You're endangering your own child. I would be in the pool, grabbing his legs, saying, you're not swimming. You're not going anywhere near my child. I'd be barricading the locker room, saying it's a hard no. Women and the men who support us, stand up. This has to stop.
Bloody oath. I love you. I love your passion, your consistency.